Gaming reviews done quick. This video ain't a skip sandwich deluxe. Welcome to the 1 Minute Rundown. I'm Octrinity, your host, and you cannot grasp the true form of this review. This time we're running down Mother, a series the English-speaking world would probably know better as Earthbound. Many gamers of the 90s might remember the SNES game, but what's not quite as well known is that it's actually part of a loosely connected trilogy. Conceptually, these started as a Dragon Quest clone set in what's essentially modern America as envisioned by an outsider's perspective, replacing swords, sorcery, and potions with baseball bats, psychic powers, and food. While their storylines are only somewhat connected, all three games take place in a quirky yet peaceful world that becomes wrecked by an alien invasion, with a group of gifted teenagers having to save the day while also delving into parody of American culture or the JRPG genre as a whole. Combat is generally turn-based and text-driven, but boasting some bizarre enemies. I've tracked down the fan translations to give you the scoop on all three games in the trilogy. Let's go. Remember when I did my review of Street Fighter 1 and admitted that fans of the series would probably be drawn to play it, but probably wouldn't enjoy it? Well, Mother 1 or Earthbound 0 is the same deal. In fact, the video I'm attaching suggests Earthbound might be a remake of this, but no, this is a completely different game, and unfortunately it's weaker in every aspect. I think the biggest problem here is that the difficulty is way too unbalanced, ranging between so easy you'll complain about the high encounter rate with enemies dying in 1 or 2 hits, or so hard you'll need to spend several hours leveling up so you don't die in 1 or 2 hits. And this isn't helped by the fact that your cast seems so specialized that you'll figure out quickly what they're good at and then realize they fail at doing pretty much everything else. Battles aren't really anything new either, whose most unique feature seems to be that enemy scans are an action everyone can take. If you're an Earthbound fan and you like really difficult games requiring constant grinding where you need to figure out everything on your own, you might like this game. But if any of those don't describe you, you can skip this one. This was one of the first RPGs I played, and went through the game again suspecting my positive opinion was based on nostalgia and because a lot of the more unusual features of this game, like enemies that appeared on the field map, aren't that unusual anymore. But actually this one held up rather well. Aside from the silly, surreal environment these games are known for, what it does unusually well is pacing, as it's a game that doesn't have much pointless filler. Weaker enemies even run away from you, or the game just declares an auto-win if your level is high enough. Even the fights themselves are quick, as it's pretty rare for any fight, bosses included, to last more than 10 rounds of combat. It's not immune to criticism, though. It does take an hour or two before things really get going, and the main 2 objectives you're given in the beginning should seem a bit shoehorned into being connected to each other. About the only thing new and different with the battle system is that your characters can cheat death by healing or finishing a fight before their HP actually counts to 0. All that said, though, this is a very enjoyable game that's worth checking out and may even attract people that aren't typically into RPGs. While story hasn't exactly been the strongest feature of this series, Mother 3, or Earthbound 2, has a much better written story that gets a lot of credit for the subtle things it does to invoke emotions. Despite appearances, this is a sad and shocking story. The story is played out from multiple perspectives, setting up a sort of extended prologue about an isolated and largely volunteering community, before eventually moving to a common group and setting a much more negative and cynical tone that's not afraid to pull punches. The battle system and core gameplay are pretty much identical to Earthbound, except that basic attacks have a rhythm game aspect that can increase damage by tapping the A button in time with the music. Naturally, even the music starts throwing some bizarre rhythms at you later. But even if you're perfect with the rhythm, it doesn't make offensive psychics useless either. I'd actually rate the previous game as slightly better paced, but the slowdown is usually to make a point in the story, so I won't complain. Actually, come to think of it, there isn't much to complain about here, as it easily ranks among the best games on the Game Boy Advance. Now that we've established these are good games, one important question remains. Why weren't these released outside of Japan in the first place? As best I can tell, Nintendo has a semi-official explanation for Mother. The version you've seen actually is an official translation, confirmed by the translator himself, but by the time the game itself was ready for release, they decided mass producing and marketing it wasn't going to turn a profit. And to be fair, they probably were right. The release most likely would have been at 1992 at the earliest, at a time where RPGs were still a niche genre and the NES was being phased out. What about Mother 3, then? Nintendo hasn't given an official statement, but the generally accepted speculation is that the original game was released in 2006 at the end of the Game Boy Advance's lifespan, and Earthbound didn't do well enough financially to warrant an official localization. In other words, pretty much the same reason. Honestly, I'm not going to argue with their reasoning there either. But since we've explained all that from that time period, what about now? I mean, we're living in a time where digital downloads of older games are a common thing. Mother has an official translation too, and the fan translation team from Mother 3 has explicitly stated he's okay with Nintendo using their work. Perhaps Nintendo just doesn't have a lot of confidence in the American JRPG market. I mean, they did imply that as their reason for not releasing several Wii games they had the rights to, but fan demand reversed that decision too, and that reason becomes even more laughable when you realize they also control the most popular RPG series in the world. Some people have claimed it's for legal reasons. Earthbound in particular had a lot of tributes to popular songs hidden in the music, but considering Earthbound did eventually land on the Wii U Virtual Console completely unmodified, that doesn't sound likely either. My theory is that release was to test the waters, so to speak, to see if it did well enough. The numbers I have tell me it's the most downloaded Virtual Console game on the system, and even ignoring that, the game's had enough presence in the Super Smash Bros. Games that it's probably gathered more interest. And supposedly that was a major factor in the Fire Emblem games getting English translations too. So if that's the route they're taking, we'll be up for another announcement soon, I bet. Alright, that's it for this one. The series director has stated he doesn't have any plans to continue the series, which has led to some fans writing out their own unofficial sequel. A lot of people seem to think of Pokemon as a spiritual successor, or at least a recommendation to someone who likes these games, since it has a lot of the same style outside of the battle system. And I'm going to throw out Persona or Shadow Hearts as a recommendation that's similar, except not holding back in the darker themes. I mentioned before that Earthbound is on the Wii U Virtual Console, which is probably your best chance to grab the game now, since the original has become a bit of a collector's item. As for the other games, unless you could read Japanese, guess we'll have to wait and see. Check back soon for the next episode of 1 Minute Rundown. The last few episodes have run off of Nintendo's B-list, so let's move over to Sony's B-list next time. Until then, remember, no crying until the end. Hello?
Hey, this is the producer.
Hey.
Thought you said in the last episode you were going to get a guest host.
I did, but no one submitted anything, so I was just going to roll that back until someone does.
So you're going with the same idea?
Yeah, the viewers just need to upload a video, or audio for that matter, where they take about a minute to review a game that I've reviewed, any episode to this point, basically offering a different point of view, and my favorite of those submissions gets to guest host similar to how we did the Punch-Out episode.
Okay, sounds good.
Also, I've still got that other guest host offer for whoever finds a hidden video. No one found it yet, so the other hint I was going to use was the hidden video link is not something you can click, it's something written directly into the video, and that's something you'll actually have to type into the URL.
Yeah, you messed that up.
I did?
Yeah, I saw what you did there. That was an L, not an I.
Really? Huh, you're right. Can we get a proofreader next time or something? I'm sorry I messed that up.
That's not in our budget.
Oh, well, fine then. Viewers, that's your other hint.
One last thing before I go.
Huh?
It's been a while since you saved your game. Don't you think you should give your dad a call?
Yeah, you're probably right.